What is your health education horror story? Story 1. I was filling in for the 9th grade life skills teacher while she was at an appointment, and she left a chart for the kids to fill in with different birth control methods, their percent effectiveness, and any side effects. I'm at the front of the room leading the discussion with the info they need to fill in their charts. The last method on the chart was abstinence. I said, there are no side effects. One of the freshman boys raised his hand and said, I know a side effect of abstinence, carpal tunnel. I couldn't even pretend that it was inappropriate. I laughed as hard as the kids did. Story 2. 9th grade health with Mr. Lam. Dude was an absolute gem of a human being, but his voice sounded exactly like Barry White. Like all the time. So anytime he tried to say anything remotely sensual, it sounded like the voiceover for a raunchy R&B song. Which made the freshmen erupt in laughter. Constantly. Poor guy just couldn't get through a lesson for 3 straight weeks. Story 3. In 5th grade, they separated the boys and girls into 2 classrooms. They must have thought the boys were too young to need any reproductive health education. This was in the late 1980s. So we were read a short story called Ray Bradbury's A Sound of Thunder by the male school principal. In the classroom with the girls, they papered over all the windows and had a teacher standing guard outside. The girls must have gotten the straight truth from our cranky female teacher about how they were all about to have their periods, get breasts, grow pubes, needing deodorant for body odor, everything. This was probably the first time many had heard some of this stuff, because when the boys came back into the room, all the girls were shell-shocked, some were crying. I asked the girl who sat next to me, what dang story did your class read? Story 4. There was a kid in class who raised his hand and asked, what's it called when girls spray out that liquid during intercourse? The teacher responded, girls don't do that. He said, trust me, it's real, I've seen it a bunch of times in videos. She never responded. That was 6th grade. Story 5. We did a thing in 9th grade where anyone could write down a question anonymously. One was about average penile size. This was in the early 90s, so that wasn't something we could just Google. The teacher, who was highly trained at coaching football but probably not at reproductive health education, told us between 7 and 9 inches. Probably every guy nervously glanced around the room and tried to put in their sure, that sounds about right face. I was convinced for about a year that I had a micro-weenie. Story 6. In high school reproductive health ed, our teacher had a big section on condoms, which culminated with the class betting on how stretchy they were to prove that no one should accept the "I'm too big for them" excuse. Well, 1 air pump and 1 condom later, we had our answer at about the size of a long watermelon. As our teacher was going to try to pop it to prove they are tough, our principal was doing his rounds and opened the door, saw our teacher smacking the heck out of an inflated condom, and just backed away slowly. I found it hilarious. Story 7. This isn't too much of a horror story, but more of a moment that made me queasy. First, when discussing testicular cancer, they showed us a video of this skinny ginger guy in the shower feeling up his balls to check for tumors. Then they gave us this fake nutsack to pass around and feel. It was pretty lifelike, and you could squeeze the balls and they'd kind of pop and slide around the sack. All I could think of was doing that to my own sack, and it just made me feel uneasy. The whole experience was just awful. Story 8. Probably 9 or 10 years old. Mid-1980s. Reproductive health was taught at an after-school event that lasted about a week. My mom and I and my best friend and her mom went. There were 2 rooms, girls and their moms in one room, and boys and their dads in the next room over. We learned basic stuff, mostly about anatomy. Slides were shown, probably dating from the 1950s. Then at one point, the male teacher came over and asked for a few of the moms to come next door to help with something. My imagination went wild, especially since my mom went with the man. I thought for sure that she and the other mom who went were being forced to show a live demo of what their breast looked like, or worse, even though I didn't know what a worse was yet. They were in there for what seemed forever. What were they doing to our moms? How is my mom going to explain this to my dad when we get home? Why is nobody alarmed? It's because they were moving desks. Story 9. When I was 5 and my sister was 6, we had a fish tank. One of the fish we had was a pregnant molly we liked quite a bit. Unfortunately, she passed away before giving birth. So my sister, curious creature she is, asked our aunt, a trauma nurse who worked on live flight with a passion for teaching, if we could cut open the fish and save the babies. This would eventually lead first to my aunt dissecting the fish for us, then to her explaining reproduction, and ended with a rudimentary version of the talk. My aunt would take every chance she got to have a very graphic and factual discussion about intercourse and reproduction, so we would always be armed with knowledge and never have anything unknown. But it was in hindsight a bizarre way to get educated on the birds and the bees. Story 10. We played STD in a cup. Everyone gets a cup of water. 1 cup of water has a bunch of dissolved starch in it, being the STD. We went around swapping fluids to represent intercourse, and we are supposed to see if we could safely avoid the dissolved starch without protection through swapping fluids. At the end, we find out who had the STD by dropping iodine into each cup, turning the starch blue. If it turned blue, you tested positive. Everyone in the class ended up with the disease, even me, because even though I only had one partner and they only had one before me, the one before them was a strumpet and had everybody's fluids. Honestly, a very good exercise and warning. Except for that one kid. At the end, he dumped his test results and refilled his cup at the bubbler in order to claim he didn't have the disease and he was good for more fluid swapping. Honestly, another good lesson on punks who will lie about being clean. Use protection, kids. Story 11. In law school we were taking up property law the other day, and there was this one section about how the owner of a pregnant animal will automatically be the owner of its offspring. For instance, if you borrow my horse and it gives birth, you must return both the original horse and the foal. One guy was instructed to come up with a situation about sheep breeding and had to use the names of his classmates. The professor intended for the names to belong to the metaphorical farmers, but the guy mistakenly ended up using them for the sheep and was on the verge of basically describing 2 girls in class breeding with each other. Story 12. The school had a briefcase of mounted prosthetic dongs so that every health class could learn how to put on contraceptives. It was kept under lock and key obviously and was an object of great interest to the student body, so when we got to class and saw the case on the teacher's desk, we knew what was up. The teacher was 100% a nightmare and very nasty to students. So he's talking about the importance of protection and he takes one of these mounted dongs out and sets it on this one girl's desk. This girl was pretty sheltered and naive, and you could tell she was terribly uncomfortable having this thing on her desk. So the teacher picks it up and starts waving it in her face while asking her if she was uncomfortable, while she just sat there in silent horror. He started waving it more aggressively and then bam. Right on the face. The girl screams and the teacher immediately ran to throw the thing back in the case locked up and put behind the desk. No more talk of contraceptives for the rest of the year. Story 13. A guy who I had a crush on, both of us seniors, pulled me aside one day and asks, "So, when a girl has her period she just lays an egg in the toilet, right?" I'll be honest. I'm not sure if I answered him or just stared at him. Story 14. In my school, health class was co-ed until gender-specific issues came up. So when it came time to learn how to self-check for cancers, we split into groups. When we were sent away to watch a film on testicular cancer, I said, "All right fellas, let's watch the ball game." And got detention. I still think it was a grade A joke. If you've gotten this far and enjoying the content, please leave a comment of your own story. We'd love to make a video of them in the future. Story 15. A horror story in terms of education. In grade 9, we were given a paper that had an equation that said having safe, protected intercourse was equal to Satan. It went, contraceptives and birth control lead to premarital deed and deed without the intention of procreation. Premarital intercourse and intercourse without the intent to have children is a sin. Choosing to be sinful is the job of Satan. Contraceptives equals Satan. Needless to say, we had a lot of pregnant girls in our graduating year. Story 16. My reproductive education was a series of books on cassette tapes from some Christian organization my dad made me listen to in the car with him one awkward summer day. Suffice to say, my actual education came courtesy of one insanely understanding young lady from the Craigslist dating section. Our first night together she just said, "Wow, you really have no idea what's up, do you?" and proceeded to walk me through it for a few hours. Honestly, hats off to that woman, because there's no way I was good at anything, but she invited me over a few more times after that, and even though we never so much as actually dated, I still regard her with a massively fond respect. Story 17. Catholic Middle School. In 8th grade, they made us watch a video that was basically, "Don't have intercourse or you'll die." The woman speaking in the video literally said she could tell if a girl has had done the deed or not by looking into her eyes and gazing into her spirit. Aside from basic biology and anatomy, that was the only formal reproductive health education that I received in school. It was horrifying. Story 18. Health education junior year of high school. One of the days I was sick, like really sick. So instead of going to class, I went to the nurse because I felt like I was gonna puke. Nurse told me that I had to get a pass from the teacher of the class I'm about to go to and come back. Which was stupid. So I was like, screw that nurse, I'll just go to class if they won't help me feel better. So I'm in class, and it's of course the day of the STD slideshow where they show us the most extreme untreated pictures of the disease to try and scare us into wanting to do the deed. There I sit, crammed in with a bunch of other students, nowhere near the door, and I feel it. I am going to puke. I don't want to puke in front of everyone, especially during the STD slideshow. I tried to power through it, but nope, it was not working. I let out a series of super loud retches, but to my surprise, I don't actually puke. I did it. Now I am merely the kid who dry heaved during the slideshow, not the one that puked all over the floor and other students. Still was embarrassing as hell though. Story 19. Teacher passed out candy, then explained that the candy was our abstinence, and once you eat the candy, you don't have it anymore. A bunch of conservative don't do the sticky crap. The point is, my friend and I got sent to the office for moaning loudly while eating M&M. Story 20. In 6th grade I learned the term popping your cherry from some friends in health class. I went home with this newly found knowledge and accused my older sister of having her cherry popped. She broke out in tears and my mom grounded me for a week. Story 21. My health teacher in high school told us male contraceptives are strong and they are very stretchy. Don't believe any guy who goes, "I'm too big, it won't fit all this," or "it's just gonna break anyways, why bother putting one on?" She then produced 3 wraps available for pickup in the health office, proceeded to pull one over her hand and up past her elbow on her arm like it was a fancy costume glove, spread her fingers out as wide as they can go. She then stretched the 2 remaining of said contraceptives over her cowboy boots and walked around non-stop for over 6 hours before one of them broke. Not necessarily a horror story, but that crap will haunt my dreams forever. Story 22. I was in health class and there was this kid named Jordan. Jordan was dumb as heck. Our gym teacher taught our health class. He was a no bullscrap kind of guy and he dealt with his fair of bullcrap from Jordan. He does the classic "there are no stupid questions here" spiel. Well, Jordan, after hearing this, raises his hand with full enthusiasm. He goes, "Mr. G, sometimes if I squeeze my nipples really hard, like I mean really hard, a tiny drop of milk will come out. Is this normal?" Our gym teacher just sort of looked at him in disbelief, but Jordan was full on serious. Our gym teacher goes, "You know when I said there are no stupid questions?" Well, I was wrong. Stop squeezing your nipples, Jordan. Story 23. Story from my mom. She taught a middle school special education class. She and a male colleague handled reproductive health education. Her first year on the job, they passed around a box so that students could write questions anonymously. The male teacher pulled a question and said he couldn't answer. Mom, wanting to be helpful, asked if it was a female question. The male teacher tried to warn her. The question was, "What does cum taste like?" My mom was so dedicated to educating these kids that she launched into a hypothetical discussion about how most body fluids have a high salt content, so it might taste salty. The boy who wrote the question could not contain himself and blurted, "My girlfriend said it tastes like gummy bears." My mother never ate a gummy bear again. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to Thread Talk for more content like this. Also, don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss out. Have a dope day and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers!